Welcome to Missing the Mark, where we look for meaning in strange places. I'm Christopher. Hi. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different in that I'm talking about a subject which is not suitable for all ages of people. So, if you're a child, basically if you haven't gone through puberty yet, please don't watch the rest of this video. It won't make much sense to you anyway. Give it a little while. Once you have, then by all means, it'll make a lot more sense to you. So, that disclaimer out of the way, here we go. Okay, so a friend gave me the link to this article called 5 Things Pornography Shows Us About Today's Sexual Landscape to laugh at, and I did a lot. So I want to share this with you guys too. This is from the website Return of Kings. I hear they're into neo-masculinity, which I assume is the idea that real masculinity is too hard, so they're going to go for some sort of easier substitute. So right off the bat, there's the 5 things pornography shows us about today's sexual landscape. And painting with a slightly broad brush, people watching porn are not having sex. It's an alternative, you know? It's like riding a horse versus driving a car. And reading car magazines is not going to teach you about riding horses. Even vary it a little bit. Like, reading a car magazine is not going to actually teach you about driving a car. You have to drive a car to drive a car. This is kind of an incredible example of looking in exactly the wrong place. There's the further problem, which he semi-acknowledges, that porn is designed to be sold, and therefore represents what somebody thinks somebody else wants, and is not, in fact, what anybody does want, but he tries to forget that so that he can write an article. Okay, so pornography can be a polarizing topic in the sphere. Some schools of thought tell you it's probably not good for you and that you should watch it rarely, if at all, while others have pointed out it might not be as detrimental to your game as one might think. Yeah, because that's really the only important part is your game. Yeah, okay. Forget that you're a human being. That's kind of irrelevant. Game is the only thing that matters because, men are just penises with legs. Anyway, personally, I use porn mainly to edge. I don't allow myself to orgasm. So I would probably fall into the second camp. However, since becoming unplugged from the Matrix, I've noticed some pretty telling parallels between glorified prostitution on camera and real life. Yeah. A lot of people believe that what happens in these flicks is not real or a fantasy. But I strongly disagree. When viewed through the lens of neo-masculinity, the similarities are obvious. And here's where we come up to a good lesson in life. If you view 2 very different things through a lens, and they look the same, at the very least try cleaning your lens, and probably just replace it. Number 1, all women want to be sexually dominated. There are plenty of scenes where the actor and actress are making sweet love, with all sorts of kissing and affectionate touching. Whether or not the actress is actually enjoying it is anybody's guess, because she's paid to sell the scene. So at least there's a mild bit of realism here. But when she's getting her hair pulled, ass smacked, and in some cases choked, she ain't faking those moans. This guy knows through his clairvoyance. Physical domination at the hands of a male is what they want, and it shows. Any remembering about that whole actresses thing? Paid to sell the scene? I guess he has a division of labor. His editor will do the reading of his article after he writes it, and he just forgets about it. Girls in the real world are exactly the same way. They all want to be ravaged in the worst way, and there are no exceptions. None of them want to be ravaged in the best way. All in the worst way. And why did they get off on incompetence, I wonder? Anyway, as to the no exceptions part, I speak from personal experience. He's manhandled every woman on the planet, apparently. If not for whacking it to porn during my sexless 20s, I might never know that girls really get off on being thrown around and manhandled in the sack. So he's had sex with everyone on the planet after his 20s. I think we're into like physics of Santa Claus territory. You know, the stuff with like, suppose it takes 4 microseconds to eat the cookies and 3 microseconds to drink the milk and 8 microseconds to put the presents under the tree. Like, how fast would Santa Claus have to be moving, etc. that stuff, like, yeah, to have had sex with every woman on the planet after his 20s, at the very least, he'd have to be running around so fast to have giant fireballs flying. And I don't mean that as a pun. I mean, like, superheated air because of compression, since he's moving so fast it can't get away from in front of him. Okay, number 2. The same few male actors are banging all the top girls. There are probably 30 or 35 female porn stars who are household names. In what household? Anyway, they're the most searched, viewed, in demand, or whatever metric gauges their popularity. I guess the guy didn't feel like finding out? Or is he trying to say no matter how you do this, you come up with that same number? Anyway, ever notice these chicks are getting banged by the same 5 or 6 dudes? You can check out clips of all your favorite female actresses, and if you're paying attention, you'll notice that the same few male actors are in just about every scene with the top girls. In the world of pornography, a man's penis size, stamina, and aesthetic fitness is equivalent to a man's game level on the real-life hookup scene. So what? Is he saying that, like, there are qualifications for success in different fields? Because he doesn't really mean anything else. Okay. Where is it? The men that look the best, have the biggest appendages, and last the longest in skin flicks are in the most demand by the directors. At least here there's a mild recognition of the fact that the people who do the hiring is the directors, and therefore the actual preferences being revealed are those of directors. Again, why does this guy never read his own article? Okay. The vast majority of men in this part of the world don't have what it takes to bed the hottest females on a regular basis. Fortunately, most of what is required, I'm assuming to, snag high-value females is under our control. Lift, stack cash, and learn game, and you'll have the same ratio advantages male porn stars do. That is to say, directors will choose you. I mean, he just talked about how these people are being picked by a third party. And I mean, you could just as easily make an analogy to breeding bulls, who actually have much better ratios than, we said 5 or 6 dudes to, so if there's 6 dudes to 30 top female porn stars, you're looking at a 5-to-1 ratio. If it's the 5 to the 35, you're looking at a 7 females for every male ratio. If you looked at breeding bulls, you would see, thousands to 1 ratios. I mean, the top breeding bull ever fertilized, I mean, granted, he didn't actually have sex with anyone. They harvest the semen, but nonetheless, so I guess, I'm sorry, that makes it actually, somewhat lesser of an analogy, but he did inseminate something like 250,000 cows. But the thing is that is all done by artificial insemination. I think horses are not done that way. And as a result, they actually do breed the horses. So, but I mean, nonetheless, they're the breeding horses. So, I mean, why not go with them and just talk about how if you can run fastest around a track as a horse, that's like whatever you want to claim actually makes you successful in this sense. Here. This is, if these people were paid, I would think this is just because someone had a deadline. I mean, this is just having this bizarre idea and flogging it because this guy desperately needs to believe that watching porn had some value. And wow. I wonder what stack cash is, by the way. I mean, is that literally just like taking bills and putting them on top of each other? Okay. Number 3, fat girls are not attractive. Speaking of the top adult film actresses, none of them are fat. Sure, there may be 1 or 2 sprinkled in that carry a little more weight, but they are a far cry from the whales that Western culture tries to shove down our throats as gorgeous. I don't think anyone's trying to shove this woman down your throat, gorgeous or otherwise. The bottom line here is that attraction cannot be negotiated or mitigated, and pornography mirrors this ironclad biological doctrine. No matter what they tell us, men with options aren't going to sleep with fat girls, just like high-value females aren't dropping their panties for fat dudes with neck beards who live with their mothers. Now, didn't Rushvi, the main Return of King, get arrested living with his mother? So I guess 2 out of 3 isn't bad. Anyway, the thing about this is, so what? I mean, this guy is clearly writing for a male audience. I mean, like, if you're not attracted to somebody, I think you'd know. If you are attracted to somebody, I think you'd know. What do generalities matter? Because each individual reading this is an individual who, presumably is aware of what he himself finds attractive. What does this matter? Like, this could be useful information to a woman looking to get into pornography as an actress, but I don't think this is the article that she would be reading in that case. And I just don't understand who this is even theoretically supposed to be for. I mean, and that's the thing, it's not theoretically supposed to be for anybody. This is some guy desperately wanting to make out that his porn habit was not a complete waste of time. Anyway, to finish this out, women reading this would be quick to disingenuously point out the presence of porn that features fat or obese women. But I don't have to be an expert in website analytics to know that the overwhelming majority of traffic is headed to the actresses who pass just about every boner test with flying colors. That is to say, now some people might give counterexamples, but I'm going to dismiss them by assuming my conclusion. No, I'm not saying his conclusion's wrong, mind you. I'm just saying he's assuming his conclusion explicitly. That's all he's doing here, is saying that while I don't have any actual information to counter this, I simply know it intuitively to be wrong. And, intuition is one thing about the things we have direct experience of, free will, etc. We experience that. We have an intuition that it exists because of our direct experience of it. What masses of people who are not ourselves do that we do not interact with is not the sort of thing about which we have intuitions, because they're the sort of things entirely outside of our experience. So as I said, I'm not saying that the guy is wrong in the sense that there are commonalities in what people find to be attractive. I'm just saying that the guy is explicitly assuming his conclusion in an argument for something that does anyone actually dispute? Anyway. 4. Sex is more emotional for women. Here we get to the standard men as emotionless robots trope. Anyway, it's probably an understatement that adult film actresses have exorbitant notch counts. And that's not counting what happens off-screen. Add to that the fact that they have much more sex as a matter of occupational obligation, and that most of that sex is with the top 1% of penises in terms of size. Okay, I just have to ask, what does it matter exactly how long the penis is for the rest of his point? I mean, suppose the penis were 8 feet long. Like that would just make sex boring, but if the penis were shorter, the sex would stay more interesting? Anyway, I'm sorry. It's safe to say that sex isn't as exciting to them as it was when they first started in the business. Familiarity does often breed contempt, that is true. Especially when you try to take a thing and remove the most important parts of it and only get the pleasure while not doing any of the actual substance of the act. So, essentially, yes, people engaged in team masturbation probably don't appreciate sex very much. I suspect that is likely true, especially, that essentially just constantly chasing dopamine rushes is going to eventually lead to you being familiar with the dopamine rush, having no surprise, etc. Nonetheless, you still get dopamine rushes from them, but extinguishment to addiction is a widely known phenomenon. So, I don't think the guy's wrong, although, again, he argues for it in the strangest way. Be that as it may, they're still women. True. And no matter how much sex a woman has had in her life, it is always an emotional experience. You know what? I bet you there are some people who are dead on the inside who are female too. Obviously, the emotional level varies from female to female. But every girl, from virgins to sluts, are emotionally invested in intercourse, whether they like it, know it, or not. Now again, this guy's not particularly wrong, but he seems to be distinguishing this from men who have no emotional investment in this, where it's an act like, scratching an itch or I don't even know. It's an act a little bit like, I don't know, doing your school homework. It's just an incredibly unimportant thing to men. Is this the idea? And you know what? No, it isn't. Men aren't soulless robots. There's an asterisk here in that a lot of people try to separate the sexual act from what it actually is, and therefore they're trying to get the pleasure of the thing without doing the actual thing. But you know what? Making a new person with someone is an incredibly emotional experience. And even opening yourself up to the possibility of making a new person with somebody is an incredibly emotional experience, because your life is changing radically, as is the life of somebody who will be descended from you and who, if you are not a psychopath, you will love with an incredible amount of attachment. That's to say, your child. And the person who helped you to make this child has to necessarily take on an extremely important part of your life. Now, not every sexual act actually leads to children, but that is what the sexual act is directed at, and on some level, all human beings know this. Now, as I said, a lot, people do use contraceptives and so on in order to turn the sexual act into team masturbation, but nonetheless, this is what everybody is trying to harvest, even if they, aren't sowing it. And, yeah, that is nonetheless tapping into an emotional thing for men and for women. And now, I'll grant you, there may be some men so emotionally damaged that they're dead on the inside, just like there's some women so emotionally damaged that they are dead on the inside. But, yeah, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little away from the humor of the thing. But this whole stereotype of men as soulless sex machines is just so incredibly stupid. And moreover, something he said actually does apply to it. Men are emotionally invested in intercourse, whether they like it, know it, or not. Proof of this in porn is constantly on display. The actresses almost always initiate kissing, affectionate touching, and other actions that establish some sort of connection with the actor. Oh, you brainless twit, you. What do you... The whole thing, remember, is directed at the person who is buying this stuff. And what is it that people who don't have somebody who will, interact with them in this fashion in real life want? They want somebody who wants them. People want to be wanted, male and female. People want to be wanted. And since you're talking about the sort of porn that is sold to men, you're talking about porn that is designed to provide the illusion of somebody wanting the viewer. And therefore, since presumably you, the guy watching, when I say you, I mean the author of this article, watching this porn is putting himself in the place of the man, and therefore it's got to be the woman who is initiating things to make him in this illusion feel wanted. The levels of self-delusion involved, and that said, this is an article attempting to buttress this self-delusion, so I shouldn't exactly be shocked, but nonetheless, come on! He acknowledged the business-like nature of this. Okay, sorry, getting back in character here. They also make and keep eye contact during the scenes, which is a telltale sign that they're feeling something other than lust. Now, you know what? I think they may well be feeling something other than lust. Greed, for example, is entirely possible. Boredom, the desire to just get through the workday so they can get to what they actually want to do that they don't have to be paid to do. Any number of things other than lust may well be going through their minds. And yes, given that they are actually having sex with people, they may even form something of a connection, which is probably part of why this is, being a porn star is not likely to be this sort of, occupation that could be done by a healthy individual. Just like, being a prostitute is probably going to take an astonishing psychological toll on the person who is doing it. But again, some people are so damaged they may be dead inside, etc. Okay. Any man with red pill game has, no doubt, experienced one or more chicks on his roster making a play to become exclusive. Now, there's a tried and true thing when writing articles in what essentially amount to self-help sites, in which the writer, says nice things about the reader, and in fact, assumes that the reader must be a really, really awesome person. Some people, hang a lampshade on this, by just explicitly saying, you reader who undoubtedly is one of the best human beings ever because you're reading my writing, etc. But anyway, yes, no, everyone has no doubt experienced one or more chicks on his roster making a play to become exclusive. Because everyone who reads this is just that desirable. That cash stacking, it really makes women want to stay with you forever. Anyway, in most friends with benefits situations, it's the female who desires exclusivity first, because the sex is emotional for her. Now, he's not claiming to have been friends with benefits with every woman on the planet, so I'm not sure on what his authority to say this is. But you know what? There are actually a lot of men who want a woman to stay around because she wants to be with them, and would like somebody where the two of, to spend time together where the two of them like each other. I mean, not as much in the incredibly psychologically damaged people who would be reading this sort of thing, I will admit. But, and self-selection being what it is, etc. But anyway. Sorry, I don't want to get into the serious stuff again. She can say that it isn't, but her biology always wins out in the end, as females can only pair bond with one male at a time, regardless of how many she's sleeping with at one time. How many females can a male pair bond with at a time? I mean, it's the nature of pair bonding. I mean, is he trying to say that a female can only have a child from one male at a time? Whereas a male can have children with several females at a time? Because, I mean, that would be biologically true, but I mean, that's an excellent way to screw over your children at the very least. And unless you're astonishingly rich, screw them over just in a plain old physical sense rather than, like feeding them sort of sense and keeping them from getting killed by other, people, etc. sort of sense. As opposed to just, you're not actually raising your children, and children take an awful lot of raising. Anyway, whatever. And number 5, the wall can be delayed. This actress is 42 years old. The vast majority of females, quote, I'm sorry, I'm not normally reading the quotes out, so sorry about that one. The vast majority of females stop trying after they've locked down a beta provider. They gain weight, stop trying to look, and sometimes act feminine, and just let themselves go altogether. Until they divorce rape their husbands and are back on the dating scene. At that point, they have the motivation to get into shape and act like a lady, but years of poor food choices, and sometimes smoking and drinking, has pushed them past the point of no return, and no amount of diet and exercise is going to reverse the effects of the wall. I'm really curious, since in theory it's men who are reading this. So what? I mean, what guy so desperate for some sort of mentoring that he's going to these lunatics needs advice on how to maintain his ability to attract a husband? I don't understand. Like, who is this for? In theory. I mean, I know who it's for in reality. It's for the author. But, who is this for in theory? Female porn stars, particularly the ones who fall into the MILF category, are living proof that the wall can be delayed for quite a while. While not all actresses in this category don't show signs of aging, a good number of them have tight, sexy bodies. These women know that if they let themselves go, they'll quickly be replaced and the checks will stop coming. That's motivation enough for them to stay looking good. Their bodies are their livelihood, so they'll do what's necessary to stay employed. And so you too can do this? I mean, half of this article is supposed to be in Cosmo, I think. A good friend of mine in SoCal works as a lab assistant. The guy who tests the actors and actresses for STDs, STIs, VDs, etc. Those are different names for the same things. Whatever. In the porn industry, he used to tell us about the great and sometimes extreme lengths older actresses go in order to stay attractive by industry standards. You notice he throws in by industry standards. Half the time he remembers this is a business and half the time he doesn't. Anyway, one thing he said a while back that stuck out to me was that aging actresses who take shortcuts to stay attractive, such as plastic surgery and Botox, don't last nearly as long as actresses who didn't cut corners. Female porn stars who watch their diets, live in the gym, and avoid smoking and drinking tend to last much longer than those who do not. And I will say, not eating junk food, getting a decent amount of exercise, and not abusing alcohol and cigarettes probably are going to be good for your long-term health, so I'm not going to say he's wrong here. According to him, the actresses who last longest go a few steps farther by juicing, having a personal chef prepare all their meals according to their specific dietary needs, and human growth hormone therapy. Now, at first when he said juicing, I kind of assumed he meant using steroids in order to be able to bulk up muscle mass. But then there's a picture of a cup full of green liquid with a bunch of vegetables sitting around it. So I'm guessing by juicing he literally means taking vegetables and putting them in a juicer and then drinking the pureed results. So I guess that's keeps you looking young, I suppose. Having a personal chef prepare all of their meals according to their specific dietary needs. Um, um, this is a little expensive, don't you think? I mean, by the time you can afford a personal chef to prepare all of your meals according to your specific dietary needs, I don't know. I mean, maybe porn stars are incredibly well paid. Maybe he believes that all women have sufficient money to hire a personal chef. I don't know. Anyway, and then human growth hormone therapy, which, if memory serves, is sort of like a very expensive placebo in adults. Good for you if you've got a hormone deficiency while you're still growing, your bone caps haven't sealed. But I believe I could be mistaken here. I haven't looked into this enough. I think that one though is purely sort of placebo level. Anyway, what older female adult film stars show us is that if women outside of this line of work put their minds to it, they can delay the effects of the wall for quite a while. The motivating factor for both groups is the same: male desire. With hard work, discipline, and consistency, any woman, porn star or not, can be sexually attractive into her 40s. So what? I mean, as I said, this article is on Return of Kings, not Cosmo. Why is he trying to motivate men to stay at... I mean, he's motivating the women reading this in order to try to stay sexually attractive into her 40s for some reason? Because I guess he's such a catch that any woman would really value that above all other things. What the heck is going on in this man's whatever he uses for a head? I don't understand this, and I don't get it. I mean, it's great for everybody to stay physically fit, don't get me wrong. I mean, all people should, do exercise so that their bodies stay functional, and whatever that is, whether it's, cardio or weightlifting or whatever, doing things in order to stay fit. And if you do so, you can stay fit into your 50s and 60s. I mean, they're strong, athletic people, even into their 70s. They're more of an exception. But if you never stop exercising, you can stay in fairly good shape. I'm not saying the sexual attractive part is a very different thing. And there are just so many layers on top of this why is this guy thinking that within a marital relationship it's deeply important in order to, for both people, I assume both people, or at least I guess the man or someone to stay looking like an attractive woman, like a porn star into her 40s? Because I mean, it's good for people to stay healthy, sure, yes. Good to stay healthy because, you're healthy. But, once you're together with a person, there are... I mean, the whole purpose of sexual attractiveness is to attract. And, granted, I mean, all people should attempt to, King St. Louis, Saint King Louis the Ninth of France. So we're talking the medieval period. One said that vanity should be avoided, but all men should dress well after the manner of their station, that their wife may the more easily love them. And certainly that is true. As somebody who is married, it is good to attempt to, keep yourself looking pleasant for the sake of the person who has committed themselves to you. So, that in itself is good too. At the same time, that's not at all the same thing as attempting to look young, which is really what he's talking about. He's talking about it, women attempting to look young and fertile. And the thing is, by the time, once you're in marriage for a while, fertility has been well established, whether it exists or not. Either way, it has been well established, and so you don't need to know whether or not somebody is fertile. So, I mean, people should, attempt to stay healthy, and it is certainly generous of marital partners to attempt to look good for the sake of their marital partner. But there's just something about this that's just such a strange way of looking at it, because he's as I said, they're both of those things are good, and yet he's got this sort of 12-year-old boy view of this, where attractiveness is not about anything but sort of like glances as if at strangers. It's just so far away from actual human relationships. And people should not in general let themselves go. It's a bad idea for many, many, many reasons. As I said, and yet this guy has picked like the one reason to justify not letting yourself go that isn't a good reason to not let yourself go. And given that not letting yourself go, that maintaining exercise and eating in a healthy way and so on are excellent ideas. I'm just impressed this guy managed to figure out like the one reason that isn't worth doing that and push that as the only reason to do it. Anyway, conclusion. As far as I'm concerned, any man who denies these similarities between pornography and the current sexual marketplace is either not paying attention or stuck in his own ignorant blue pill bliss. Okay, sir. Sure. That's what's going on. Understand this, gents. Female sexuality is always for sale. Be it marriage, relationships, prostitution, or pornography, every woman's vagina has a price, and X-rated movies are the personification of this axiom on both a physical and psychological level. Really? I guess okay. So, if we ignore the way he's attempting to describe that sex, and he's limiting to just women, but sex for both people, in point of fact, the male and the female, does involve another person. And therefore, there's some sort of interaction associated with this act, which is basically all that he is saying. That said, I guess he's never heard of nuns? Because... yeah, no, actually, I'm pretty sure he hasn't. But anyhow, this is such a bizarre, strange way of saying that sex involves interaction with people and therefore has attendant interactions, and is something where there's some amount of, well, give and take. To describe that as being for sale, the commercialization of all human interaction. You might as well say that all conversation is for sale. That somebody's getting something out of having a conversation with you. Well, yeah, but to say it's all for sale is just... it's to, at best, come up with a bad metaphor. Okay, I'm sorry. So, moving on. So the next time you fire up the old laptop for some chicken choking fun, try to pay a little more attention to what's really going on. You mean the fact that people are attempting to put something on the screen to help you lie to yourself in order to make you part with your money? No, of course he doesn't mean that. If your neo-masculine development is even in its infancy, the red pill truths will be as clear as day. Yeah. So, okay. I apologize for where I sort of got bogged down from the humor by dealing with, reality as it is a little bit. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this, because this is just so absurd. And it's this weird article where this guy desperately, despite knowing that watching porn is bad for him, wants to provide some sort of value that he got out of this so he doesn't have to think that he actually was just wasting his time. And somehow, in order to come up with 5 of these things to justify how he wasn't completely wasting his time by watching porn, he came up with 2 of them that actually should have been an article in Cosmo, or some sort of magazine. This thing is just... it is, at the end of the day, a testament to just how powerful wishful thinking can be. So, with that said, I hope you had at least some fun. And until next time, may you hit everything you aim at.